Hello there, music lovers. Welcome back to the channel. It has been such a long time. I've missed you guys, and thank you so much for checking in on me. Some of you sent me some messages to make sure that I still had a pulse. I really appreciate it. This channel has been doing fine without me. It's growing. It's almost at 3,000 subs. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, it's perfectly fine. I appreciate it. Welcome to the new subscribers. And in this video, I'm going to be going over my favorites and not so favorites from 2021. And so stay tuned for that. It's coming up. And yeah, I mean, 2021's been a rough year for a lot of people. Maybe you recognize some people that have had it tough. And, I've been doing a lot over this past year, including, going through my book collection. I found one that I needed to move from fiction to current affairs. Doesn't happen that often. Along the way, I came across one of my all-time favorite books. And this is a great one for the kids. Although I was out recently and I saw some adults that looked like they had read it. And of course, there were some kids on their way to school looked like they really enjoyed the book too. And also, here's something that I'll share with you that I actually did do over this past year, which I'm proud of, is I became a certified holistic nutritionist, which is basically just a furthering of my education in nutrition, which is something I've been interested in for many, many years. I reversed my own health issues, lost a lot of weight. I help men to lose weight and to become the healthiest versions of themselves. And you know what? One of the things that I thought about doing was maybe extending a hand out to somebody that I know who could use some help, like Vince Neil of Motley Crue. And this gets me to my first pick of the year. This is the biggest question of the year. Will Vince Neil be ready for Motley Crue and their stadium tour in 2022? All right, so here's the deal with Vince Neil and Motley Crue. They were supposed to do a stadium tour in 2021, but that got pushed out to next year, 2022. And so, Vince has been doing some solo gigs, and the reviews have not been good. Fans have been calling him out, noticeably out of shape, doesn't have enough oxygen to sing well. There's even been some shows where they caught him, not able to remember the lyrics, reading the words off the floor that are on there for him. Also, at one show, he just walked right off the stage and broke some ribs. I mean, I don't think Vince Neil has cracked ribs like this since he was at the Texas Steakhouse. All right, but seriously, it's not just Vince's fans that are picking up on this. Even his peers are noticing that there's something wrong with Vince Neil. Chris Jericho is one of them. Phil Lewis from LA Guns, the ex-limo driver from Motley Crue, even going as far as saying that Vince Neil has an alcohol problem, and this is a big reason why he's not getting in shape for this tour. Even his own bandmate, Nikki Sixx, has kind of weighed in some way without being too direct at all, really, but he makes a lot of sense here. I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, this is what Nikki Sixx had to say about being in shape and being a performer. He says, it's not necessarily for vanity reasons. I just don't operate well. He's talking about being at a heavier weight. The machinery doesn't operate well. I don't think good. I don't sleep good. So health and exercise has become such a part of my life. People come from everywhere to come see you play, and you just stand up there all tired with a beer belly. I mean, that's irresponsible. There's a million other bands that would like to have your job. Now, I got to give Nicky credit here for being right. I know I've given him a lot of shit over the years for various things, but I call it the way I see it. Nicky is 100% on here. If you are a performer, you owe it to yourself and to your fans to be 100% or as close to 100% healthy as you possibly can. So credit and props to Nicky on that one. And if you thought that that was shocking, that I agree with Nicky on something, then here's another one that's going to blow your mind, okay? My favorite album of 2021. Actually, I've got a couple that I really, really enjoyed, but I'm going to edge this next one out just because of the fact that it's Styx and Crash of the Crown. That's right. This was probably one of my most favorite albums from 2021, and it's a bit of a shock because, look, these guys, I've been giving them so much shit over the years for the way that they parted ways with Dennis DeYoung. I still don't like the way that all went down, but I got to give credit where it's due. And you may want to check, I think Hell may have frozen over too, possibly. Tommy Shaw is in fine form here. Great lyrics, vocals, great guitar work. Even Gowan, Lawrence Gowan, Great vocals. He's great on this album. Todd Suckerman, the drummer, he really shines on this album. This is a very strong Styx album, one of the best albums I think that they have ever made. So go check it out. Even if you're for or against Dennis these days, it doesn't matter. You know, look, I have to admit it. Good stuff is good stuff, all right? And this new Styx album is definitely worth it. Now here's another album that I loved in 2021, Smith Kotzen. This is the debut album. Great collaboration here from Adrian Smith of Iron Maiden, one of the great guitarists in that band, and Richie Kotzen, who is mostly known for being a solo artist, but he's also played with Mr. Big and even did a stint in Poison for a little bit, but most notably lately, he's been playing with Mike Portnoy and Billy Sheehan as the Winery Dogs, one of my favorite bands that's out now. Now, this was a real treat to see this because Adrian Smith, I love him in Iron Maiden, but you never get to see him sing. And this is Adrian basically getting out and doing something a little bit different than Iron Maiden. For those of you who may be scared away by the Iron Maiden, don't let it scare you at all. This has nothing to do with Maiden. This is totally different. This album is more of a, and it's definitely a hard rock album, but it's also got a lot of classic rock elements to it, very bluesy and soulful, and so definitely check it out. Now, speaking of metal, might as well go ahead and get this one out of the way. Iron Maiden, I think, delivered the best metal album of 2021 with Senjutsu. This is basically Eddie becoming a martial artist now. This is where Eddie's been. He's been through a lot, Eddie. Now, one thing I'll say about this new album is that in terms of Maiden, it's definitely not going to rival the best of their stuff from the 80s, their heyday period. But I would say it's definitely among the stronger, most accessible stuff that they've done in 20 years, since maybe Brave New World. So if you're an old school fan, there may be some stuff here that you'll appreciate. So be sure to check it out. Let me know below what you think about it. And speaking of metal, have you heard about the mashup between Metallica and Huey Lewis and the News? That's right, the best mashup of 2021 has got to go to Huey and Metallica for Hip to Be Sandman. Now, this is one of those things that you have to literally hear it in order to really appreciate it, but just know it's out there waiting for you. You know, the perfect mashup is the one that takes two songs that are completely different and makes it sound like they were meant to be. And that's what you're going to get for this one. If you want to see it in all its glory, be sure to check out my companion playlist, which I have curated for you guys, just for you, filled with a lot of the videos and the songs that I'm talking about in this video. Be sure to check out the link for that above and below in the description. All right, now, as we move through the best of 2021, my picks for some of the best and worst, the best debut album from a rock band in 2021. There's two of them that came to mind. One of them was Mammoth, Wolfgang Van Halen. You know, I'll even give it album cover of the year, just because somebody put some thought into an album cover. I mean, we don't talk about album covers now the way we used to. When I was a kid, we used to stare at the album covers, the artwork and everything. Now it just seems to be lost. Whether it's on a CD case that nobody sees or a digital download, it's like, who the hell looks at album artwork? So props to Wolfie for coming up with a pretty cool album cover. And also, will he become the next Dave Grohl? You know, Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, he started off playing all the instruments himself. He still writes everything himself. And Wolfie is fully capable, as we've seen on this album, that he can do it all. You know, and I'll even give him video of the year for Don't Back Down, where we see him, you know, he's the guitarist, he's the bass player, and he has all the problems that come with even having your own band. You know, sometimes you show up late to your own gig, you know, you got to deal with a producer. And so the fact that Wolfie does all of this himself, and he's really good at it, the songs are very strong. So it will be interesting to see where Wolfie goes next. You know, will he work in the studio by himself on the next few albums, or is he going to be bringing in others to help him out, kind of like Dave Grohl with the Foo Fighters? In the meantime, he is on the road with a live band, and he will be back out in 2022. One of the bands that he's got opening for him is a band that I have on my list for one of the strongest debuts of 2021. It is Dirty Honey. Yeah, this is a band that is a great mixture of Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses and the Black Crowes, and no coincidence that they have already opened up for Guns N' Roses and the Black Crowes. These guys have a very strong debut album. They remind me of like late 80s, not hair metal, but like late 80s hard rock and classic rock. And like I said, they are opening up for some huge bands. They're going to be opening up for Wolfie in 2022. So be sure to go see them live. They are definitely an up-and-comer. And in terms of my favorite song of 2021, that's got to be the return of Porcupine Tree with Harridan. Now, I know what you're saying. Who in the hell are Porcupine Tree? Well, it's the lead singer of the band and mastermind of Porcupine Tree is Steven Wilson. And not only has he been a great solo artist over the past decade, but he's been known most for his remixes. He does a great job remixing some great classic albums from the 70s that maybe had some muddy mixes to begin with. Like, for instance, he's gone back and done some great work on Black Sabbath albums, Jethro Tull, Yes, Chicago, Tears for Fears, and King Crimson, just to name a few. And speaking of King Crimson, the drummer for Porcupine Tree, Gavin Harrison, is actually one of the drummers in King Crimson currently. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit a drummer from King Crimson. They got 3 of them. But Gavin is really what makes this track pop. His drumming on this one is kinetic and explosive. It's an amazing track. This track knows when to explode, and it knows when to get beautiful and quiet. And so I encourage you to check out this one, and I can't wait to hear the rest of the album. Porcupine Tree, they always deliver. They may have a weird, funny name, but the band is on point, and what an amazing track, my favorite for 2021. All right, moving things right along, my favorite instrumental of 2021's got to go to the Liquid Tension Experiment. They just dropped their 3rd album, long awaited. This collaboration is amazing. The passage of time, anything off this album is mind-blowing. They jam their balls off. I'm talking about John Petrucci on guitar. He's from Dream Theater. Also, Jordan Rudess on the keys. He's from Dream Theater. Mike Portnoy on drums. He used to be in Dream Theater. And of course, Uncle Tony, talking about Tony Levin on the stick, on the bass. This guy is the master. And of course, Tony Levin has played for decades with Peter Gabriel in his band. And of course, he's done just as much time probably with King Crimson. Being their bass player. He's currently in that band now. And so it's so great to see these guys back and jamming. A tremendous album. This is the kind of stuff that will basically leave your jaw dropped just because of the musicianship is all over the place. And all right, so while we're talking about Uncle Tony, how about we do some trivia? It's been a while, all right? So let's do some back in time trivia with Tony Levin. Now, Tony got to work with a couple of Beatles. Which one did he get to work with in the 80s? All right, was it John Lennon? Was it Paul McCartney? George Harrison? Or was it Ringo Starr? All right, think about that one, and I'll give you the answer after we talk about the Beatles, because after all, how can you talk about the best documentary of 2021 without talking about the Beatles? Get Back. I mean, look, there is no way around it. This is the most extraordinary look inside of the Beatles machinery than we've ever had before. Even though this footage has been sitting around for literally like 50 years, it was originally released as part of a film called Let It Be back in 1970, but it came out after the Beatles broke up. And so the overall taste in everybody's mouth between the footage being grainy and the Beatles having broken up and seemingly on bitter terms. This movie just never got the proper perspective that it should have. But fortunately, Peter Jackson went through the vaults and he took out, you know, all this footage. We're talking about over 60 hours of film footage and 150 hours of audio that Peter Jackson was able to go through and restore. You know, in its essence, this Beatles documentary is a good spotlight on what it's like to be in a band, and in many different ways. It's just icing on the cake that it happens to be about the Beatles, one of the biggest bands in the world. But here we get to see a band being very creative. We get to see the painful times, and then there's times of goofiness. There's times of maybe being bored to death, and also some very exciting times, like, you know, when you're playing on the roof of your recording studio and the cops are looking to arrest you. So this is a film that is a celebration of what it's like to be in a band and a celebration of what it was like to be in the Beatles in January of 1969. This documentary also helps put to rest the rumors that like Yoko Ono broke up the band because she was sitting there with them while they were writing and rehearsing, and also that they weren't getting along at all during this period. This band was definitely going through some growing pains for many different reasons. Paul McCartney even said that they were going through like a divorce period, and he knew that the band was going to be done probably before too long. But the way I kind of see it is, even when you're going through a relationship that maybe isn't great and the wheels are going to come off, there are still times where there's rays of sunshine. There's still times when you can laugh, and it may sound crazy and illogical, but that's just the way life is. And this documentary showcases what it was like being in the Beatles during a turbulent time in January 1969, warts and all, smiles and all, and it's a fascinating thing to see. So definitely you'll want to check it out. Now let's get back to the trivia, back in time trivia. The question was, which Beatle did Tony Levin work with in the 80s? Was it John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, or Ringo Starr? The answer, A, John Lennon. That's right. Tony Levin got to work with John Lennon in the 80s on the last two studio albums that he would make, Double Fantasy and Milk and Honey. And Tony Levin talks about the first conversation that he had with John Lennon, and this is what John told him. He said, his first words to me were, "They tell me you're good, just don't play too many notes. It was great. It was too short. I wish it had been longer." The sessions themselves were about 2 weeks, and there was talk of doing a world tour afterward that never happened, sadly. So yeah, all those songs on Double Fantasy that you hear, just like Starting Over and Watching the Wheels and Nobody Told Me from Milk and Honey, that's all Tony. And he also got to record a version of I'm Losing You with Rick Nielsen and Bunny Carlos of Cheap Trick. And I'll include that in the companion playlist to this video. Up next, how about my favorite reaction video? I got to give this to Jamel, also known as Jamal, for his reaction to Yes's Close to the Edge. I get a real kick out of watching some of these reaction videos, especially, songs that I love. It's just really interesting to hear how people are connecting with this music that was released maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago. Songs that I loved as a teenager that I felt like I was weird for liking, that nobody else liked. Here we are now, decades later, so many different music lovers out there engaging with this music and it making such a profound impact on them. It just really speaks to how timeless some of this great music is. I mean, this reaction that Jamel, aka Jamal, had for Yes's Close to the Edge was just amazing. Listen to what he says after listening to this great epic track.
This, as of today, is the greatest song I have ever heard. All right? I didn't want it to end, man.
Yeah, as I was saying, it's just incredible to me how this music is still touching people. Prog rock from the 70s that was written off by critics as being just empty garbage. Don't tell that to some of these people reacting. Don't tell that to Ambrose Cynthia, who reacted to Firth of Fifth by Genesis from the Peter Gabriel days. She was in tears listening to Steve Hackett's guitar solo. This just reaffirms that this music still does connect. It still does touch people in a very profound way. And props to everyone here who is passing the music down from generation to generation. This is how we keep rock music alive, all right? And now it's time for my reaction to the latest Yes album, which is going to go down as my least favorite album of 2021. That's right, the worst album of the year has got to go to the new album from Yes called The Quest. And I'll also go ahead and throw in the worst song of the year is going to be The Ice Bridge from Yes, which was the lead single off this new album. And look, now I will say this, the new Yes album is much better than the last one that came out. That was called Heaven and Earth, or as I like to call it, Heathen and Earth. That album was complete garbage. This new one, at least, is a little bit more musical. It sounds better, but the songs are weak and forgettable, and it sounds like a glorified Steve Howe solo album. You know, these songs sound like Steve Howe demos with, you know, John Davidson with some vocals on top and Jeff Downes putting some keyboard stuff on top. There's nothing really here as far as I'm concerned. I would love to know what some of you Yes fans think. I mean, look, this is my thing. All right, if you don't have John Anderson and you don't have Chris Squire, you don't have a band called Yes. They founded the band, okay? And I don't care about, you know, who's left holding the baby and who's got the rights to the name. That's all legal stuff. Tell it to a judge. I'm talking about the real fans know who the real Yes is. You got no John Anderson, you got no Yes. Gabish. Now, Jeff Downes, formerly of the Buggles and Asia, and who even had a brief stint in Yes in 1980, he is in the band currently. Now, I recently found an interview that I did with Jeff Downes. I didn't even think I had it. And it's from 2002. And I went to go interview him while he was with Asia. And it was a very Spinal Tap interview. And I'll be sharing it with you here very, very soon. But in 2002, I asked Jeff if he would ever rejoin Yes. And this is what he said to me about rejoining Yes back in 2002.
Well, I don't think so, really, because I think, you know, stayed with Asia for nearly 20 years now. And I can't imagine me playing with any other band. And I really see the Yes thing as being a stepping stone more than anything else, because I think that go back in there again, it's only going to be as a retrospective look. I don't think I was in them for long enough for it to be, you know, one album.
Well, it is funny how things change, isn't it? Because, of course, Jeff went on to join Yes 9 years later. Well, I'll be sharing with you parts of my interview with Jeff Downes on this channel very, very soon. Let me know if you're interested in hearing that. And like I said, there's some Spinal Tap elements to it, which I think that you guys will really enjoy. But let me know what you think about this new Yes album. And of course, if you want to learn about the 5 reasons why I don't believe a Yes reunion will be happening anytime soon, check out my video, Reunion Runaround, for more about that. So now it's time for the best cover of 2021, and I got to give this to the Foo Fighters for You Should Be Dancing, or should I say the DGs. That's right, it's not the Foo Fighters, it's the DGs, and that's one of the reasons why I got to give it to them. They went the extra step, the extra mile, and formed a new band called the DGs. Sounds like something that I would have done, and they even looked the part too, and they did an excellent job, you know, reinventing the Bee Gees in 2021, so got to give him props for that. It's certainly better than the worst cover of 2021, which I would have to give to Stephen Pearcy of Rat for his cover of Duran Duran's Girls on Film, which I'm still scratching my head wondering why he thought this was a good idea. You know, imagine in the 80s telling a Rat fan that Stephen Pearcy is going to be doing a cover of Duran Duran's Girls on Film. I mean, we would think you were crazy. Of course, Motley Crue went on to do a cover of Like a Virgin from Madonna. I mean, that happened, so anything is possible. It certainly makes you wonder, you know, not only what's going on in Stephen Pearcy's mind, but it also makes you long for the old days. You know, I kind of long for the old days when Stephen Pearcy was doing Geico commercials, right? Now, for the worst cover, I was either going to go with Stephen Pearcy or Paul Stanley and his cover of Ooh Child, the 1970 soul classic that he's doing with his band Soul Station, or as I like to call him, Soul Sucking Station. This is his little side gig that he's got outside of Kiss. I would imagine this is probably what he's going to be doing after Kiss is done finally at some point, whenever that is. You can look forward to Paul Stanley and the Soul Sucking Station probably at a Vegas residency at some point. And this is just awful, awful stuff. But hey, at least, you know, he doesn't have to bring his karaoke machine with him, you know, when he goes and does this stuff. Like, he can probably handle it on his own. And if he can't, there's somebody else in the band who'll sing for him probably. And while we're talking about Paul Stanley, how about I give him another award? All right, I'm feeling very generous today. How about the biggest pain in the ass award for 2021? And he can share this one with his bandmate and longtime friend, Gene Simmons. You know, one of the big problems or side effects of the concert industry being turned upside down over these past couple of years is that Kiss hasn't had a chance to finish up their career. You know, they should have been done by now, really, but we're just prolonging the inevitable, which is these two insufferable clown bastards getting off the road for good. And since they've had so much time on their hands, all they do is sitting around busting people's balls. All year long, I've been reading, whether it's Gene or Paul, busting balls. Here's an example. Paul Stanley lashes out publicly against actress Felicia Rashad, formerly of The Cosby Show, because she was glad to see Bill Cosby getting out of jail. Now, Paul had to chime in and bust balls about that. You know what, Paul? Nobody gives a shit what you have to say. Really, keep it to yourself. Then Paul runs his mouth during the new Kiss documentary on A&E, talking about how Bob Ezrin was a functioning addict. Well, Bob didn't appreciate that too much. Paul had to come out publicly and apologize to Bob Ezrin for busting his balls. Then there's Gene Simmons, who had to take a crack at David Lee Roth. You know, David Lee Roth was the opening act for Kiss on their End of the Road tour. Well, that came to an end, and then we see Gene running his mouth. He says that Roth took being a frontman way beyond anything, and then, I don't know what happened to him, something, and you get modern day Dave. And then he goes on to talk about how he prefers to remember Elvis the way that he was, even go as far as saying, I don't want to think of bloated, naked Elvis on the bathroom floor. You mean the way that we get to see a bloated clown face like Gene Simmons way past his prime? And of course, you know, Gene Simmons had to come out and make an apology. And then, of course, David Lee Roth, he responds to Simmons with a very friendly gesture. And then you get Gene and Paul all year long, constantly telling their fans what to wear on their face, what they should be injecting into their bodies, calling them the enemy if you don't do what the establishment tells you to do. And what's great is that the Kiss fans are actually fighting back. You know, Gene even went as far as boldly saying to one fan, don't tell me what to do. It's like, yeah, I'll tell you what to do. That's my job. You know, it's no wonder why Kiss can't sell any more fucking tickets. They had to pull out of Vegas. And Gene Simmons came out and said, yeah, well, it's because there's too much competition on the Strip. Maybe in about a year and a half, that's when Kiss will come back and we'll give you the best show on earth. That's right, because the best show on earth can't go on unless it's the only show on the Strip. If the fucking blue-headed dicks are in town, no one wants to go see Kiss. So finally, my only request for the clowns in Kiss is this. Pretty please, with sugar on top, mind your own fucking business and be careful where you get your news. Quite frankly, the only news that I trust is Huey Lewis and the news. Now, speaking of the establishment and party line, here is my award for the best fuck off to the establishment. It's got to go to Roger Waters, formerly of Pink Floyd. After getting a letter from Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, who wanted to use his song, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, as part of an upcoming film to promote Instagram. And he apparently offered Waters a lot of money, and Waters was not having it. This is what he had to say. So he talks about a letter that Mark Zuckerberg sent him, arrived this morning with an offer of a huge, huge amount of money. And the answer is, fuck you. No fucking way. Hey, now Roger Waters, I know, can be a very controversial figure, but as far as I'm concerned, anybody that gives a big fuck you to the establishment, I am all for it. And by the way, have you seen the cat that looks like Roger Waters? I mean, this is uncanny. You know, they say that sometimes, you know, pets, they look like their owners. I don't know if this is Roger's cat, but if that's the case, I do wonder if this dog belongs to Jeff Lynne of ELO. Now, finally, I'm going to wrap up this video with a look at my favorite tribute song of 2021, which is going to be by Wolfgang Van Halen. And this is off his debut album, which I talked about earlier. The track is called Distance, and it's his tribute to his father, the late, great Eddie Van Halen, who we lost, sadly, last year to cancer. And, you know, this song is such a great tribute. You can hear Wolfie pouring his heart out to his father. And the words, no matter what the distance is, I will be with you. No matter what the distance is, you'll be okay. And you'd have to think that these words are resonating with Wolfie every day that he, you know, embarks on his own career. Much the same way that when people leave our lives, they're not truly gone. We can still hear their laughter. We can still hear them yelling at us or telling us what we should be doing. And you know, it's funny how even when we lose these great artists who we may have not known personally, but their music and their lyrics and what they meant to us will always be there. And so to wrap up this video, I'm going to run a montage, not a comprehensive list, but a lot of the names that we lost this particular year that meant a lot to me. And I'd appreciate if you want to drop some names below, some people that we lost that meant a lot to you. And also be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And let me know what your picks are, best and worst for 2021. And hit that subscribe button too. Check out the companion playlist with all kinds of music and videos that are related to what I talked about here. All right, so I'll have some more videos coming soon, so stay tuned for that. It's been great to see you and hang out with you guys. And I'll catch you next time, all right? Take care, and I'll see you in 2022.